We're on?
You're on.
All right. Late night from Willowdale. We haven't done one a number of months, and we gave everyone a break. And this will be a short one because these videos go much too long. So, I want to talk about the election campaign and the English language debate that Cleve and I watched tonight, and also a bit about the Trump impeachment stuff. But just a very good article from the New York Times for a couple of weeks ago. I just want to read out, and people can look it up. Okay, so on the election campaign and the debate tonight, no question, I think everyone will agree that Jagmeet Singh in the English language debate, he did well in the French language debate, but from what I watched, he did quite well in the English language debate, and the bit of the commentary that I saw in the last few minutes agreed with that. He was on message. He was humorous. He was very human, and he did very well. No one really lost the English language debate. I don't think it was, other than Jagmeet Singh, I don't see any other sort of clear winner, and I don't think anyone really lost. Trudeau held his own. Elizabeth May got her points out. Andrew Scheer didn't look too bad. And Bernier and the Bloc leader, yeah, whatever.
Manu Blanchette or whatever.
Yeah. I think that, I think basically I'm voting Green. There's my little Green Party sign. I already put a Facebook message on about that. I like the Green Party. I think their candidates generally are pretty intelligent. I think Elizabeth May is very intelligent. I don't agree with everything the Green Party stands for. I support pipelines. I support oil and gas development. It's not, obviously it's going to be phased out over the years, but I do support those things. I do, of course, support alternative energies. There's big, solar power. This co-op's got solar power units on it. I support wind farms. I'm a big fan of alternative energies. I think every new house built should have solar panels installed. I think every apartment building should have windmills and solar panels. So I'm a big fan of that. I agree with a lot of the green program, but certain things I don't agree with. I don't think one pipeline is the end of the world. I think, I don't think Elizabeth May's run that great a campaign. But I'm still supporting the Greens. I generally like a lot of things they say, and I think a lot of their candidates are pretty smart. I think Trudeau, I think Trudeau hasn't done a bad job running the government. I think he's a bit of a clown. I mean, at that blackface thing, when I first saw that, a number of weeks back, I thought, you idiot, the son of a prime minister, and you could do that when you're 29 years of age and you're a high school teacher. All I could think of is, you're not a racist. You're not a racist, but you're an idiot. You're a stupid idiot. And I thought, yeah, Justin Bieber, Trudeau. But I don't think, most Canadians, so I think, gave him a pass on that. They probably saw it the same thing, a privileged kid of a former prime minister. But I think most Canadians sort of gave him a pass on that. But I don't think he's done a bad job running the Canadian government. I don't think I think, when they attack him on the pipeline, and you built a pipeline, and how can you be an environmentalist and you built a pipeline? I think it's totally fair. I mean, running a complex country like Canada, which is dependent on natural resource development, yes, you can still move forward on green energy and doing things to combat climate change, but you still have resources. You have to get to market. Oil has to get to market, and it's not a zero-sum game. And I don't think Trudeau does enough defending, the compromises that you have to make when you're prime minister. And he should have said that tonight. He said there are compromises you make, and I think Canadians would understand that. Yeah, when you're prime minister of this resource-dependent country, this country that produces a lot of natural resources, and makes, oil
It's a colonialist country.
Oil and gas is still 10% of the Canadian economy. And we need to get that stuff to market. I don't think expanding one existing pipeline, the Trans Mountain, is the end of the world. And yeah, I think Trudeau should have done a better job saying, hey, you have to make compromises on these things. And and that's, but I don't think he's done a bad job overall in terms of running the government. But
Well, in a way, the Americans have gotten over. In a way, the Americans have gotten over Canadianism much more than Canadians have gotten over Canadianism.
I don't know what you really mean by that.
Well,
But
in terms of being a resource-rich country, right? Like, I mean, the Americans have become more independent. They obviously they're a republic. They have gun. They even have gun laws that still echo through today when it comes to the King of England coming in and marching in.
Well, yeah, their gun laws are.
But Canadians don't have that sort of same mentality, right? Like we think about resources in terms of the land and what we have and what we can, and what we can exploit.
Look, we're not gonna. I understand the argument: keep the resources in the ground, but that's not feasible. So, but the bottom line is, I don't want to dwell on this. When you're the head of government, especially a complex country like Canada, you have to make compromises, and you're not going to get everything. You're not going to get all the things you want done. And I think that, and I'm glad that it's good if the Green Party wins a number of seats and holds whoever's in power, most likely the Liberals. I'm not saying it will be, but to environmental stewardship or leadership, that's a good thing. So. But when it comes to another big issue is Indigenous issues, and it sort of was alluded to tonight, and it comes to the practicality of governing. And I think some of these promises. First of all, I've never been a big fan of this patronizing, paternalizing stuff that we are sitting on the ancestral lands of this different indigenous band or whatever. I always find that stuff patronizing, paternalizing. I don't like that. I like concrete things that are done. I think all these commissions, frankly, I don't know what they've amounted to, and I've written about this. I don't know. In my library, there's a whole thing of the commissions, the Aboriginal, the National Inquiry, there's the Manitoba Inquiry, there's the Royal Commission, and then of course now we've had the more recent ones, and they don't really amount to much because nothing seems to get done. When it comes to Indigenous issues, I'm a very practical person. I think that Trudeau talked about the boil water advisories and how we've reduced this. Why do anybody in these communities, most of them which live on lakes, have to, why can't they get fresh drinking water? Why can't we provide, I know it's not as easy as it sounds, but to provide the monies to get every Indigenous community fresh drinking water. Forget all these commissions and inquiries that cost billions of dollars. What could it cost to provide every Indigenous community in this country with fresh drinking water? And if we have to bring in people to run these facilities, we'll do so. Like, this is crazy. I'm into practical solutions, and that's and
that's something that Indigenous rights people aren't.
Yeah,
into.
There's a lot of flowery talk about nations. They're individual nations and all of this. Frankly, I've never subscribed to that. Obviously I support, Indigenous culture and keeping up Indigenous languages and everything. But really, we have one federal government, we have 10 provincial governments, we have 3 territorial governments. And one of the territorial governments is an Indigenous government, Nunavut. First Aboriginal-run government in the world. And, 30,000 people live in the territory of Nunavut, which is about the size of Western Europe. I think, we got to recognize preserving Indigenous culture, language, and all that. But we got to do the practical things, and that's lifting people out of poverty and getting these communities decent housing and safe drinking water. And in this what could that cost? Maybe $10-20 billion. We can afford it. And let's stop the flowery language and all this stuff about we're sitting on the ancestral lands or this or that, because that really doesn't matter. That's just words. Let's just get the practical things done. And I say that too about the environment. It's the small things, people, like this, alternative energy and pouring money into public transit so people don't drive as much. And we should have a better rail system across this country, so people can take trains and not drive. So there's lots of little things we can do. And obviously the plastic water ban, going to that direction, is important. Khalid, I've recently wrote about cigarette butts. Why are we allowing people throwing their cigarette butts onto the streets?
And the liberals are behind that. Like,
Let's
like,
get let's
yeah.
that's terrible. Like, some of the stuff I know is not totally enforceable, but ask yourself if you smoke cigarettes, why do you think you can just throw your cigarette butt onto the street, which is highly toxic? Most of it, here in Toronto, a lot of it just ends up in Lake Ontario. And cigarette butts are worse than plastic in many ways. We need to do things like that, making sure, yes, we stop the plastic, we stop this,
Microplastics to
all
begin
these
with.
plastics in our environment. We don't buy bottled water, plastic water bottles, and you find a better way to get rid of cigarette butts. There are probably some ways you can recycle them, but keep them out of our rivers and lakes and oceans. And there are practical things you can do on the environment too. So, and not all the talk about meeting all these. I agree with some people. We're not going to meet these. We're not going to meet all these.
Well, the U.S. has met them.
The Paris climate
yeah.
targets. We're not going to meet them. It's not possible. Let's do things that are possible and reasonable, and stop all this rhetoric about So yeah, I agree with more conservative commentators, and some are on the stage tonight. We got to have practical solutions, and I don't. I think the Liberals do a lot of talk, and there's not a lot of action. So I'm rambling on a bit about this, but I think you know where I'm coming from. Whether it's on Indigenous issues or environmental issues, let's do practical solutions that work and stop all the rhetoric and all the flowery rhetoric and all that. This is not doing anything. There are lots of other issues that come up in the campaign.
But liberal promises have been usually satisfied, right?
I'll give Trudeau credit. Legalizing pot, the cannabis. I'll give him credit for that. Bringing in the
3/4 of the Paris Accord. At
least beginning to act on climate change without going totally eco crazy. And I'll give him credit on the assisted, the legislation for legal suicides or assisted dying.
Mm-hmm.
It was a bit watered down, but I'll give him credit on that. And there are a number of other things that I hope the Liberals get stronger on gun control. There's no reason there should be guns. I don't believe Canadians need guns. I understand if you live in rural areas or live in isolated areas, having a long gun, wildlife, obvious protection from bears and cougars and stuff like that. But certainly people who live in cities don't need guns, okay? And I think that should be banned. Guns should be really hard to get in this country, like they are in Japan, like they are in most of Europe, like it's now become the case in New Zealand and Australia. So, yeah, it's tighter gun control. There's going
to be an otherworldly attack apart from guns. It's going to happen, right?
Yeah. So, anyways,
if it's going to be a French attack, then it's going to be a French attack, right?
I don't believe that Canadians don't need easy access to guns, and if you live in rural or isolated areas of this country, I understand you might want a long gun for a variety of reasons. But other than that. Anyways, this is a short little thing. I think, I don't know what's going to happen in the election. It's hard to make a prediction. I'd be surprised the Liberals didn't get at least a minority government, but who knows? I don't think the Greens are going to do as well as was originally thought. I don't think Elizabeth May has ran that great a campaign. I think the NDP will hold I think they're going to lose some seats, but they're not going to be decimated, which, was looking like that in the beginning of the campaign. The Bloc is going to be very well in Quebec, obviously taking seats from everybody, and the Conservatives, it's hard to say.
Did Bill 21 make more of a showing?
Is a big issue.
Okay,
and I'm glad Trudeau has a relatively strong position on it because his dad would certainly have opposed it. And I'm glad it's an issue. And obviously, no, there's no place in Canada for a bill like that. I'm an atheist. I'm a secular person. I'm an atheist, but I don't mind. Hey, I'm wearing a kata, right? I'm not a Sikh, but I'm wearing a kata as members of my trip to India. If people want to wear religious symbols in the workplace, I have no problems with that. As long as people don't force their religion on me, I don't really care. It's your problem, your private thing. If you want to do that, that's fine. I think that what's happening in Quebec is horrible, and sometimes I do get irritated when I hear the Bloc. He's an intelligent guy, the Bloc guy.
But can a hijabi be just as irritating?
Nah, I don't really care. I mean, I don't like it, But if you don't get in my, if you're not enforcing your religion on me, then I don't really care what you do. Doesn't affect me. Just, I believe in secularism. I believe in a secular.
But Andrew, when we go to the driver's license places down at the DMV, you got to take your hat off when you take a picture.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, and in that instance, I think there's got to be some exceptions, and I don't totally want to get into it all, but
like when I go to get my passport renewed, like in the next couple weeks or whatever, I will have to take my hat off. My beloved hat that I wear so much, I would have to take it off
get it.
when I get
I do understand that. I do think that when it comes to burqas and stuff, you have to make an exception.
And that might be an employee in Ontario.
I think you have to uncover your face when you get these official ID photos.
No, I would have to take my hat off. Like the official rules, in case you didn't know, is you got to take your hat off.
I don't want to get into this whole debate about Bill. I want to end this video. I said it'd be short, so and it's already gone on. The bottom line is, I get a little irritated with the Bloc and Quebec's some of Quebec's positions. You know, Quebec, they say they don't want no pipelines crossing Quebec, which I think is just totally off the wall, frankly. Because, you know, you drive cars in Quebec, they still fly. I mean, it's a big province. So they still need oil. And I'd rather have oil coming from Alberta than from Saudi Arabia. I mean, that's the whole thing, right? Wouldn't it be better to get oil from Alberta across the country? So we don't have to import it from Saudi Arabia? Really?
Right.
Anyways, Quebec's position on clean energy is always hypocritical because they destroyed a good chunk of the James Bay lowlands in central Quebec to build the big hydroelectric projects, the James Bay project in central Quebec. They destroyed a lot of that. They displaced a lot of indigenous people, and they call that clean energy. The hypocrisy around that is just stunning. And so, yeah, my position, you know, when Quebecers think they produce clean energy, forget it. And the idea, well, we'll never let an oil pipeline across our province, I just find that off the wall. Anyways, we'll see what happens in the election. This is supposed to be a short video, and we'll see. We'll just see what happens. It's going to be interesting. I think it'll be an interesting. It's 2 weeks tonight, so we'll find out. I'll be surprised though if the Liberals win a majority. I think a lot of people think they're heading to minority government, and we'll see what happens with the Conservatives. Hey, they might pull it off. We'll see. But like I said, I'm voting Green. You know, I already said I have my. I don't agree with them on everything, but I think I'd love to see the Greens win a bunch more seats in Parliament.
Highbrow, right?
But now there's so many other issues we could talk about. So much going on in the world, from Kashmir to what's going on in Syria. But we got to
do a U.S. thing. Sorry.
So, we're just going to move very briefly to the impeachment inquiry going on in the U.S. and
there's Mr. Pelosi, right?
That's Nancy Pelosi.
Oh, right.
And so I'm going to read you. This is David, and just bear with me. This is worth. Okay, David Leonard writes column in the New York Times. And this is from. I got to put on my little reading glasses here because my eyesight's going down the tube.
Also, you don't have
from September the 23rd, 2019. People should look this up in the New York Times. September 23rd, 2019, in the op-eds page. And this is D. Leonard writing about why basically, and he wrote this before before the shakedown of the Ukrainian president. So let me just bear with me. It'll take a couple of minutes to read. But this is really, for a lot of you people, think why I think Trump should be impeached. Because of all the things I'm just going to read to you, he summarized it. I think Trump needs that stain on his presidency. Bill Clinton was impeached because he lied about a consensual sexual act. He lied about a consensual sexual act, basically a blowjob. He lied about it, and he got impeached. For no high crimes and misdemeanor, just stupid, unethical behavior. And he got impeached. He's done nothing compared to what Trump has done. And let me just, so I think Trump deserves that stain on his presidency. He'll be acquitted by the Senate, but I think he deserves that impeachment stain.
Okay, well, you have 18 minutes, just so as you know.
No, well, this will be over in 5, and then we're done. That video will be done.
Okay,
so David Leonard writes, President Trump, just the facts. Sometimes it's worth stepping back to look at the full picture. Okay, let's look at some of the things Trump has done over the last couple of years. He has pressured a foreign leader to intervene. He has pressured a foreign leader to interfere in the 2020 American presidential election. 2020 American presidential elections. He obviously referred to the shakedown of the Ukrainian president.
And the Chinese.
Yeah, and now the Chinese. He urged a foreign country to intervene in the 2016 presidential election. He divulged classified information to foreign officials.
The Russians.
He publicly undermined American intelligence agents while standing next to a hostile foreign autocrat. He hired a national security advisor whom he knew had secretly worked as a foreign lobbyist.
Yeah.
He encourages foreign leaders to enrich him and his family by staying at his hotels. He genuflects to murderous dictators. He has alienated America's closest allies. He lied to the American people about his company's business dealings in Russia. He tells new lies virtually every week about the economy, voter fraud, and as we know, even the weather. He spends hours on end watching television and days on end staying at resorts, but he declines to read briefing books or perform other basic functions of his job. He has aides as well as members of his own party in Congress who mock him behind his back as unfit for office. He has repeatedly denigrated a deceased United States senator who was many people think was a war hero. I'm with Trump on that one. He insulted a Gold Star family, the survivors of American troops killed in action. He described a former First Lady not long after she died as nasty. He described white supremacists as some very fine people. He told 4 women of color, all citizens and members of Congress, to go back and help fix the totally broken and crime-infested places from which they came. He made a joke about Pocahontas during a ceremony honoring Native American World War II veterans. He launched his political career by falsely claiming that the first black president, Obama, was not really American. He launched his presidential campaign by describing Mexicans as rapists. He has described women variously as a dog, a pig, a horse face, as well as bleeding badly from a facelift and having blood coming out of her whatever. He has been accused of sexual assault or misconduct by multiple women. He enthusiastically campaigned for a Senate candidate who was accused of molesting multiple teenage girls. He waved around his arms while giving a speech to ridicule a physically disabled person. He has encouraged his supporters to commit violence against their political opponents. He has called for his opponents and critics to be investigated and jailed. He uses the phrase popular with dictators, the enemy of the people, to describe journalists. He attempts to undermine any independent source of information that he does not like. That includes judges, scientists, journalists, election officials, the FBI, the CIA, the Congressional Budget Office, and the National Weather Service. He has tried to harass Chairman of the Federal Reserve into lowering. He has tried to harass the Chairman of the Federal Reserve, Jeremy Powell, into lowering interest rates. That's supposed to be a very independent job. He said that a judge could not be objective because of his American heritage. He has obstructed justice by trying to influence an investigation into his presidential campaign. He violated federal law by directing his lawyer to pay $280,000 in hush money to cover
Stormy.
the Stormy Daniels thing. Yeah, he violated federal law by directing his lawyer to pay $280,000 in hush money to cover up 2 extramarital affairs. He made his fortune partly through wide-scale financial fraud. We all know that. He has refused to release his tax returns. He falsely accused his predecessor, Barack Obama, of wiretapping him. He claimed that the federal law enforcement agencies and prosecutors regularly fabricated evidence, thereby damaging the credibility of criminal investigations across the country. He has ordered children to be physically separated from their parents and put in cages. He has suggested that America is no different from or better than Vladimir Putin's Russia. He has called America a hellhole.
Okay, we get it. Like, we get the point.
Yeah.
Like, geez.
That's it.
Like, I mean, okay.
He is the president of the United States, and he's a threat to virtually everything that the United States should stand for.
Okay.
And that's why I read this. So if you're thinking, why are they proceeding with impeachment?
Who's reading what? Sorry? Like, who's reading what?
That's why I read this.
Yeah, but who's...
That's why I'm reading... That's why I read
Oh, that's
this.
why everybody reads the New York Times. Oh, I see. Okay.
I want you to realize why people want to impeach Trump. And I just gave you like 20 reasons. So that's David Leonard's column in the New York Times.
That's crazy.
September 23rd, 2019. Look it up.
That's
and then every time people ask, well, why should Trump be impeached? Well, you just got the evidence
That's fucking crazy.
All right.
That's a long list of whatever, right? Like,
exactly.
I mean...
And that's late night for Willowdale from now.
Okay.